Welcome everybody to our September edition of the Worksmith Community Series Talks. My name is Hilary McNevin. I'm the founder of Turnip Media, and on behalf of Turnip, Worksmith, Mercedes-Benz Vans, Zero, Square, ALM and Kookaburra, welcome to this brilliant chat that we have today about the future of food is the working title, and what a working title it is. I think it's enormous. So we're going to break that down quite a bit tonight, but it's my pleasure to introduce our guests. We have Chef Resident of Future Food Systems, Jo Barrett. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we also have the co-founder of Keep Cup and founder of Returner Marketplace, Jamie Forsyth. Jamie, welcome.
Hello.
Now, we're going to start with you, Jamie. Please just introduce yourself. This is a beautiful hospitality industry-focused audience tonight, and everyone else who just wants to be here and hear all your beautiful stories and inspirational ideas. But Jamie, so tell us about who you are and what you do.
I'm Jamie, and I suppose I've been invited on here because I have been working in the hospitality industry for a long time. You did introduce me around Keep Cup and Returner, which is sort of my focuses over the last 10 years. But in actual fact, I had a cafe business back in 1998 called Blue Bag, which still exists today. I started that with my sister. And from there, in 2008, I started Keep Cup with her.
Yes.
And because my focus had changed from sort of food service into sustainability, where we had a business that created a lot of single-use waste, and we wanted to do something about it. And Keep Cup was sort of born out of a problem that we were participating in. From there, I have gone on to found a new business called Returner, which sort of deals with packaging besides coffee cups. So it's focused on all the other things. And most recently, we've just launched Returner Marketplace, which is all about reusables in the grocery space and for personal care, laundry, etc., where you can basically borrow reusables instead of single-use packaging.
That sounds so logical and so... note, Exhibit A. We have Jo sipping tea in her Returner. That's a Returner cup, and Returner Marketplace is where you would buy it. Do you want to just tell us?
Returner started off as basically a product business where we provided reusables. Now,
yes,
you don't buy those. So like it's very different from, let's say, a Keep Cup model where you would choose a product where you chose the size, the color, the material that you love that product to be in, and you would keep it and use it as your own.
Yes.
Because coffee all around the world is very similar. Like you can get the same type of coffee in Melbourne as you can in Singapore, London, New York. It's all the sizes are relatively the same. But once you're starting to move into other types of packaging, particularly meals, bowls, those sorts of things, cuisines vary massively. So it's a much more complex sort of execution to try and create things that can be used broadly to prevent the sort of production, consumption, and landfill of single-use packaging. So instead of having an ownership model, we're sort of looking at a model where customers can effectively borrow a product and then return it. So it allows us to design products that are very suitable for a particular market, but doesn't put the onus on the customer to have to basically buy those at every occasion, remember to bring them, etc., because obviously that's just too much friction. So that's the first stage of Returner, and now this next stage with Returner Marketplace is where we effectively sell products or the contents through the platform. Might be coffee, might be ice cream, might be shampoo in a pump. Everything is in a reusable.
Yes.
And you use that for the period of time that you are using it, and then you return it back to our network. So when we deliver next time, we pick up the empties. We wash them, cycle them back into the supply chain, and the merry-go-round continues around. So, and because in a lot of reuse systems, the real dark art is the return logistics, because it's often expensive, difficult to manage. So Returner Marketplace takes care of all that and hopefully simplifies it for people, because ultimately reuse is like we do it every day. We do it in almost all aspects of our lives. Like every plate, every cup in our pantry is effectively what we're doing. We're just trying to make the use of that or that method just a little bit more broad, to take it out to food service, to take it out to grocery, etc.
I love this. There's so much more to uncover. But Jo, while the sun's still up, I would love you to introduce yourself to everyone, let them know what you do. And as you're doing that, can we have a little adventure?
Yeah, so at the moment you're sitting in our living room. So I am a chef, and at the moment I'm working on a project called Future Food System with Joost Bakker and Chef Matt Stone. And this is our kitchen. So this is a modular house that we started building last year in August, or July, August, during COVID. And then now we've moved in January, and we've been operating a few dinners when we weren't in COVID. And then we've been living here and showing what's possible in an urban environment. So this is the biggest module. So the house is reverse engineered, and at the moment there's the edge, so Deakin Edge, and we're in Federation Square in Melbourne CBD. So just to give you content of where we are, there's the city.
Yeah, the Arts Centre. We really couldn't ask for a better night with the stillness, could we? Just get a really good view.
It's really quiet. So Flinders Street is just up here.
Yeah.
And at the moment we're sitting on the deck. So the deck here beneath us are the bedrooms. And then these garden beds along here are what weights the house down. So the house, I just emptied this, that's why there's a pump there. But all these gardens are screwed to the roof, and it's reverse engineered, so it's holding the house down. And then up there we have wicking beds at our rooftop, where we grow a lot more of our food. Then behind us, these are called food cubes by Biofilter. So they're wicking beds. So what we're trying to do at Future Food System is just show that even though we're in an urban city, we could be growing our food, and we see this as the future of food, kind of taking the stress off kind of common agriculture or traditional agriculture and returning it to being a part of our food system. So when we were doing dinners before lockdown, we'd have guests sit like a family meal. So 6 people here, then 2 and 2 at our cooking bench. Then we would cook from here. And we had another 4 sitting where I'm sitting, and we were cooking with what we've grown here, or food inspired by an urban environment, and showing that if you take away sugar, for example, or wheat, that you can still have a really nourishing, fulfilling meal. So we're cooking about 10 courses with beverage included for 14 people each night, with food that was grown in a city. So we kind of see part of the future of food is returning to being a part of your food system in an urban environment, and kind of, you've got no excuse when you're living here.
No, and again, more because you've had some beautiful things to show us that you've been growing, which we'll have a look at. But I wanted to really tuck into the hospitality industry, and where the 2 approaches the approaches you're both taking in terms of working within it and finding out ways to operate sustainably within it. And Jo, that was a really wonderful feature article by the magnificent Danny Valent just recently, featuring all about you, and it was a beautiful, well done, Danny, if you're watching. I thought it was just brilliant. There's a significant quote, I think, from you, and you said, that I feel so passionate about the environment that I'd rather give up cooking, start my own little farm and just grow my own produce than stay in an industry that is either too stubborn to change or doesn't have the courage to change. Do you feel at the moment, the words stubborn and courage are both very strong, very emotive words. Where are the obstacles at the moment for the hospitality industry, and how can something like you and Matt and Joost are working on help it?
Oh, I can definitely see, I feel really passionate about this, and I think that's why I've joined in on a project like this, because it is really frustrating. I think a lot of the diners that we've had in here are really frustrated with the current system, and people just don't know how to change. So I guess that comment just came from, especially chefs. We have got a bit of a responsibility around food. We're the ones creating dishes. We're the ones placing the orders. We're dealing with producers and suppliers. But we also are in a position where we can change that as well, and maybe order a little bit differently, or use our skills to cook within the seasons, or connect directly with producers and reverse it and kind of get them saying, hey, I've got this, can you cook it? Like a chef's role was to how to treat food in season, and know how to cook it properly and how to represent that ingredient really well. And it's kind of, I feel, just steered a little bit away from that, where we have turned into kind of creating food just for the sake of creating it. And it's still meant to nourish people. And our skill was to treat ingredients when they were there, rather than come up with dishes and then seek out an ingredient and then put a bit of pressure on to get it exactly the same size or out of season. And that's when we start to spray things or grow things that aren't meant to be grown in areas, and force the environment to do something that it's not meant to do at that time. So I think working within this project, I can really see that a lot of the problems that we're in, and a lot of problems that people are really passionate about within climate, are a result of the food system.
Yes, I agree.
Health, not having nutrient-dense food, or, plastics with packaging, or, rivers having runoff and losing our topsoil from spraying. And like, it actually, once you start getting into it and you dig a little bit, and then you uncover this quite overwhelming subject around, I guess, climate change. And I'm really passionate about the environment. And I feel, when I was saying that, I felt really responsible for it, and I didn't want to be a part of an industry responsible for something that inevitably we might not be able to reverse. So I think it's more around, this project in particular has shown me there's been some tough times at the start when, haven't had sugar, or, you don't have cling wrap, or, things that you would revert to and use.
Yes.
You can actually overcome them, and then you become creative and you find something that's even better. And I think it's that stubbornness or maybe a little bit of fear, that if you just took that thing away, you have to come up with a result, or a solution. It's more, we're not taking those things away from ourselves that are creating the problem. And I think we know Return is a perfect example. It's hard because I see we have to make our businesses work. I run businesses now. I totally understand the financial pressures of running a business, and, sustainability. If it comes down to, I've got to sell food, but then I've got to use single-use plastics to sell my food. Well, you're going to do it. But I think it's maybe coming up with creative ideas like Returner, and then sticking to it and committing, and eventually it will catch on. But I think it's just about taking the challenge, or the first step to making it a bit uncomfortable for yourself.
I think that's it. No, I just, may I add, I loved that quote. I think that's one of I was inspired by that, in terms of human beings in general are stubborn and don't like change, and fear drives a lot, I think, of what we do or don't do. And one thing I found interesting that I'd like to link to you, Jamie, Joe, you also mentioned in the article about having farmers lead the way for chefs. I can grow this at this point and this much of it at this time of year. And I noticed, Jamie, in terms of, I think Returner and Returner Marketplace is also very produce driven. You're not just thinking of the container and preventing single use. You're also encouraging small local producers, if I may say.
Yes, no, that's definitely true. And part of that is the fact that, like, within that logistics chain, to make the environmental gains that we're trying to look for, you really have to work with local supply in order to do that. Like, even, let's say, Returner Marketplace at the moment is only available in Melbourne, and even at this stage, it's very early, so it's only available in the inner ring of Melbourne. And so part of what we've got to do is, when we receive the containers back, they're sanitised, and then they've got to go back to the supply chain to be filled. Now, if that distance is too far, too time consuming, not only does it add cost that makes it financially unsustainable, but the environmental numbers start to get wonky as well. So so that is one part that is a necessity of the program, that it has to support local type businesses. That also turns out to be something that I'm personally passionate about, because there's plenty of great local. I'm very, very Melbourne focused. I'm a champion of Melbourne, and I love the brands and businesses that have been created here and are headquartered out of here. So I'm looking to and from a marketing point of view, it's fantastic that if they choose to support us, like, we love that, because generally speaking, our customers want to support local brands too. They want to support them financially. They want to support, we segment our customer very hard at the start and say, if you want to get product in single-use packaging, that's okay. Like, it's not, Return Marketplace is not for everyone. But if you don't, we are the one place where we have no packaging. So we've taken that customer and we're trying to deliver to them a full grocery experience. And it's not there yet, but it will over time, where effectively they can get all their home things for home, not only fruit and vegetables that you mentioned, which is supplied by Organic Ease, but all types of stuff. So, dairy's about to go on, ice cream, there should be the full gamut.
Yeah. I think that's exciting about food, though, and probably like following on from what I was saying before, it's about kind of food tourism as well, and having like localized food becomes exciting to travel to. And, that's being Melburnian, that's what we do, is cook, and, we're a food city. And then to have, cuisine based around a local area is way more exciting when you want to go and travel as well. If Sydney has specific cuisine, or Brisbane, and I think Returner highlights that so well, and it's exactly what we're trying to do here, is just have a really localized food system.
Do you think it's harder now, Joe and Jamie, actually for both of you, to, like, you're talking about market segmenting customers and finding the right customers? There is part of the marketplace that you would already be talking to about how you both approach your work and sustainability. Is it hard to convert people to what you're doing?
No, I don't think so. I think what we have found just with our guests that have come here, they have like a thirst for knowledge and a thirst to know where and how to do things. It's just making it attainable and available for people. That's probably our biggest struggle has been, we only seat 14 people. We've had limited tours. So it's been really hard to get people in here. We do have a virtual tour on our website now, which is really exciting, but just trying to get the information out there, because we're chefs, but, we're trying to learn how to make movies or have a YouTube channel, write a book, just share information. I think there's definitely, from what we've seen, people want to make a change, and they want to do what they feel is the right thing.
And do you think that's across the board too, Jamie, in terms of Returner? Are you finding more? There's a growing interest, I think, in both ways of work.
What I can say is that, if I go back to the launch of Keep Cup, at that point in time, generally speaking, around 0.2, 0.3% of people who got takeaway coffee would use a reusable cup. Wow. And from there, it's sort of grown up to sort of pre-COVID times to, around 30% Australia-wide and in a lot of places around the world. And then, even in heartland areas, it would be as high as 50% of people who are getting a takeaway coffee were using a reusable cup. So there is definitely a segment of people out there who basically just are willing to go to some effort to effectively reduce the waste that they create. The catch in what I said there is some effort. So I think everyone will want to participate. Yeah. It's about reducing the level of friction for the user to the point where they're willing to invest something into it in order to create that outcome. Now, we do have customers who come to us with Returner and even with Keep Cup, and what they're looking for is this system where it doesn't cost them anything. It's implemented by someone else. The system guarantees that everyone will use it and everything will be washed and stacked back up neatly at the very end of the day for it all to happen again. That system does not exist. All system creates effort. If they want that person, they need Dumbledore. They don't need me. And so, so the thing about it is that there is a little bit of effort. Yeah. We've got to get it to the point where that effort is not much more than you having to take your garbage out or separate your rubbish or do all those other sorts of things. That's what I was put on this earth to do, okay, to try and lower that friction. We don't get it right every time. Sometimes it feels more complicated than it is, but that's what we're aiming for, because if we can achieve that, then we will, there is a business there and there is plentiful people who will be willing to participate.
Yeah.
Friction, another word for resistance to change, is that?
Well, I suppose like there is a consumer behaviour change that has to happen. Like customers have to understand how it works, and like I said, it's on one hand it's dead simple. It's basically how you use everything in your house. But then on the other hand, listen, we've got to track what we give out to people because that asset has value. Yes. There's a few T's and C's about how things operate, and that can bog people down. There's a level of trust you've got to build up with your customer that, you're doing it for the right reasons and that you're going to try and look after them. And, this is the value proposition that you're going to give to them. Mm-hmm. And behaviour change is hard. Like at the same time, when Keep Cup was launched, you wouldn't believe how many people have said to me, I had exactly the same idea, like thousands over the years, right? But at the same time, there was thousands who said, and these are friends, these are family, these are people who I listen to, they would say to me, this is the worst idea you've ever had. Really? And the reason is because people don't see it how it was. Like at the time, people they would worry about what the barista would think of them. They would worry, they worry about a whole lot of stuff, which now seems like the behaviour's been normalised now. So it's not a big deal to ask for someone to fill up a reusable vessel. And mainly those walls were knocked down by a lot of the work that was done at Keep Cup.
No, that's it. That's about changing the resistance, like easing the resistance to change. Jo, what has been the hardest things for you in Future Food Systems in terms of friction and finding friction from people? Have you found much?
No, not from people. I think we get a lot of people who are willing to try everything. We've got crickets and, I think part of this house is to make things convenient. So garden beds are at a really nice height, so you're not bending down. Things are in your face. So we, like on the entry wall, we have mushrooms. So we grow lots of different types of mushrooms. So these are native enoki mushrooms, but growing mushrooms can be or could be a bit of a struggle, but they're in our face, so we have to look after them. They're grown off all the steam from our shower. So I think it's about just making things convenient, and that is the whole idea, with this project, is that it doesn't feel like it's out of the norm. Mm-hmm. I think what we're trying to do is just normalise, which has been around forever, growing food, but just in your home. So you're living with it, and it isn't, and there isn't any friction because it's easy. So I don't need to think about what to cook. I just look out the window and go, oh, that's, the rainbow shard's ready to pick. So that's what we're going to eat today. Or today we actually harvested sweet potato.
Oh, beautiful.
So we'll be eating sweet potato, and then it kind of makes you go, oh, well, how many different ways can I cook that? So I think, it hasn't been hard, and people have been really excited, I think surprised when they've come to eat. We've had a few people. One night we had an older couple in, and we served a course and it kind of went quiet, and then he said to his partner, I didn't think it was going to be this good. Room heard. So I think there's a preconception that growing your own food is just salad, and it's actually really fun to do. It doesn't take that much work once you get it going, so it is actually really easy, and that's probably been quite surprising, except for the barramundi. That's been a little bit hard.
That. Can I just add in, everyone who's watching, please shoot through any questions that you'd like to ask either Jo or Jamie, as while we're still talking. We've got a good 20 minutes or so. So please send them through and I'll pass them on and we can keep chatting. So, and the word convenience. So on that, this is a question, I guess, and for both of you as well, but I'll go to you first, Jo, from what you're talking about. What are some of the things when we were talking about the conventional restaurant or the world of restaurants and the systems we know now? What would be 2 or 3 things you could take from your experience at the moment and put into a regular system tomorrow, and you get your brigade to work on, it could be picked up fairly easily?
I guess things like composting, that's really simple.
Yep.
And it seems backwards to me that maybe restaurants don't do it, considering it's just so easy. And you can organise green bins, and that, compost is so integral to how our food grows, and it's really important. So composting is one. Things that I've really learnt just around cooking in general is like taking out sugar. Refined sugar has been really interesting, and using honey and tiger nuts, things like that, I've actually been tasting differently. It's not so saturated. And I guess, packaging, investing in really good storage containers so you're not using single-use plastics, or investing in jars and fermenting, learning how to ferment and preserve food properly so it doesn't spoil. We didn't start with a pantry, and that's something that we've had to build over time. So investing in your skills on how to cook, and enjoying that process of learning and making mistakes. So I think that's been really fun, learning about koji. That's what we have up here, which we use for a lot of base ferment. So I think it sounds so underrated, but like investing in learning new skills, like on cooking, and not being afraid to not know everything.
That's the key to pretty much everything. No, but and I don't think it's a small thing to say either, Jo, because a lot of us get into habits, and we know this and we know that, and like you were saying, Jamie, we know to take the bins out, we know to do the dishes. It's about creating a new habit, which takes a while, takes a few weeks. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean you have to go and grow mushrooms or grow sweet potatoes, but maybe know what mushroom is in season and not expect to get a certain mushroom at a certain time, or maybe learn whole animal butchery and not just buy a single cut, or maybe use trout or barramundi, which are sustainably farmed fish, rather than like trawler or, seafood that just getting pulled out of the ocean constantly and might need a break. So it's just about doing a bit more research.
And Jamie, what about how you see Returner and hospitality and restaurants? Restaurants are reopening soon, all, being well.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
How is your product? How could if I own a restaurant and I'm opening up again and I want to cut down on the single-use plastics and things? I remember my restaurant days, dry stores full of those, the single-use, the plastics with the tape on them. That was then. That's fine. But how do we move forward?
Well, I suppose the whole COVID thing is highlighted to a lot of people just the sheer volume of packaging that's created around getting takeaway meals, and obviously a lot of people ordering in. With what I have been down to Future Food, and I love it, and I think what Jo talks about there a lot is the silver lining of COVID, and that is that it's highlighted how sustainability is really just around getting back to the simple pleasures of things, growing things, cooking things, learning new skills. It's not a hugely complicated sort of endeavour, and you often don't land a knockout punch to make changes. It's small incremental things that you sort of build into your life that obviously over time can make a real difference, particularly at a collective level, if you get a wider movement happening. So I think with restaurants, often I find that it's a mixed bag, but the whole idea around food, it's a creative endeavour. And I find that most of the people we deal with, they are creative people. They are looking for solutions, and they're actually, we lean on them for a lot of creative ways in which to use our products in order to prevent the single-use packaging or any other type of sort of thing that's bad for the environment. And they're out there, and there's certainly a group of business owners who are not only personally motivated for whatever reasons that they might have as an individual. Maybe they worry about the climate, or they've got some particular environmental bent, maybe the oceans or whatever. But they also are observing that, generally speaking, at the moment in Australia, it's optional, okay, where you don't necessarily have to offer a sustainable option. It's identified as good because there's a customer base out there. But pretty soon legislation, I think, will come in. It's happened in a lot of other countries. And it's only a matter of time before it happens. And I do generally think that, are you going to be the sort of business that goes out to meet the ship, or are you going to just wait for it to come into shore? Because I think that those who go out first probably will reap the benefits of, a more engaged, a more loyal, and a better customer.
I love that. And it's true. We need to push ourselves out there. Absolutely. Go and meet the ship.
Also just say, because sometimes I forget to give actual practical things, but when we were at Oak Ridge, Matt and I, we decided to remove cling wrap from our kitchen and the Chuck's cloth. And they were something that in a kitchen you'd find everywhere. And one day we just took them out. And then when we took it out, we just had to find a solution. So that is, if you're a hospitality business and you're concerned about something and you don't know, just take it out and you'll figure out a solution. I think often, the technology is amazing at the moment, and there's so many resources and creative people that you can plug it into the internet and there'll be a solution there. But
can you share with us what your solutions were for those two things?
We just started washing our own cloths, and then we invested in more containers to store our food, and we just didn't use cling wrap. We started picking more from the garden. We took out chemicals and we introduced an e-water system. I don't know if e-water is still going. That's a reverse osmosis salt brine. And we didn't use any chemicals, and that actually turned out to be more beneficial because we were saving money instead of buying chemicals. So sometimes there's a bit of an investment up front, but then it pays off over the course of your business.
We have some questions coming through, which is very exciting. I love a good question. First one is a lovely one for both of you. What's the one thing, Joe, I'll start with you, the one thing we should ask restaurants when we go... Start again. What's the one thing we should ask restaurants we go to about their sustainability practices?
I guess just especially when it comes to protein, I guess that's a big thing for me, is just how animals are treated. So maybe ask where their produce is coming from. I think restaurants are getting better with food. You'll be able to see it. I don't know about asking restaurants about that. I think there's a lot of social media, so you can have a look on Instagram and kind of see if people are usually pretty proud about their sustainability practices.
And where their produce comes from, like you say, and where they choose to buy.
Yeah.
Where the restaurant chooses to spend their money, I think, can indicate for you where you... Yeah,
I think also you'll find if you look at the menu and there's tomatoes in the middle of winter in Melbourne, I don't know where we're getting them from.
Jamie, would you like to add to that?
I'd probably say, when I'm trying to filter out sort of real businesses that are trying to make genuine change beyond just sort of making green claims about certain things they're doing, I typically look to the leader of that organisation. And for me, that's the ultimate litmus test of whether that business is absolutely serious about it, because that person is often out talking about the subject more broadly than just within their own organisation. They're often championing a whole category of businesses to make change. And for me, that's kind of like the gold standard because I know from the leader, everything else will filter to all other parts of the business. And usually that is a person, not just a claim around a particular organisation.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, next question. Question for Jamie from Luke Phillips. Thanks for watching, Luke. In terms of reducing friction, how have you found the adoption and use of returner for takeaway food in local cafes?
We've found it to be really good. Obviously, COVID's put a big pin in the sort of the restaurant part of the business. Many of our existing old customers have been closed and are closed right now. I think that there's still inroads we can make, like there's certainly technology that we want to add into our business to try and continue to reduce that friction. And I probably think that where people are going to see that first is within our own returner marketplace. So I'd be looking to there to try and reduce the friction. Also, too, like the core focus of the business is sustainability, but generally speaking, that is not enough. It's not nearly enough. So we look to try and create a value proposition for the supply chain, like the suppliers who are on. So that might be cost savings, that might be better presentation of their products, that might be better supply. There's lots of things we can do there. And then at the consumer end, making that experience better than takeaway. So it might hold temperature better, might seal better, might be nicer to eat from. Trying to lift that sort of thing with Marketplace, like a big part of what we're trying to do is to try and help you organize your pantry and let's say avoid having to decant contents out of a bag, which is going to be thrown out into your own containers. Avoid you having to have a drawer full of containers and lids that you basically have to filter through to try and find the right container. Maybe you've got a container that's half full. Like, we are hoping to make all those problems go away and make that experience better so that, there's just more for you to be on the platform than just, avoiding the single use.
Gosh. No, yes, so many layers to it. I love it. Like, it's so interesting.
So as an example,
for hours, guys.
As an example, the original Keep Cup, which people will remember, its only design mandate was that it had to outperform a paper cup. Okay, that was it. And it was a tight mandate, and it was one of the reasons probably why the first design was quite successful.
Yeah.
The second product that came onto market was it was called Brew, and it's the glass version, and that was about trying to lift the takeaway experience. So there was more than just avoiding takeaway cups. It's actually better to drink from. I'm drinking my takeaway coffee from glass. The touch and feel to the lip is nicer. The spigot seals and over time, and even now, like Keep Cup's coming out with more products that continually lift that experience. And that is the one thing that reusables can do. They can add features in that you can never hope to have in a single-use product because the cost would be too high.
Love it. Next question is from Larissa Lewis, who I believe is from Kookaburra. So thanks for watching. And it's Joe. We were lucky enough to visit the house on the first day you opened. I can imagine it's hard to reach the resistant population without the house being open to the public, or has social media been enough? And then 2, that was my first question. Have you managed to change the behaviour / minds of decision makers of the food industries as a result of the house?
We can't walk out the front of the house without being stopped and asked about what is it and what's going on. But social media has definitely helped us get the message across. Yeah. I think we get really encouraging messages all the time from people. So that's been really, really nice to know that people are watching, and a lot of them are our friends, and we get, it has been difficult at times. So when we do hit those kind of lulls, to receive a message like that has been great. We've been incredibly supportive with getting an extension on the project. So we're here till April. So when we first opened, we weren't sure how long we were going to be here, which was quite stressful. We invested, 5 years into getting the project here, and then we built, and then we weren't sure. So I think, with a project like this, people just didn't know what it was and what we were trying to do. And now that we've been here and been able to, post about food or do the virtual tours with Foria or host dinners. I think people get it now. And then, Fed Square have been amazing. And same with City of Melbourne, just letting us stay here. Same with Heritage Victoria, because we're a heritage listed site. So I think there's definitely support here. And I think it's just our responsibility now to really get as much information out there. And that's what we want to do. We're not trying to, this is just to create and inspire people of putting a house here that grows food in a place where you just wouldn't expect it.
You're sharing an experience.
And we've said it, we say it all the time, but if people do have questions or, we will try and build content based around that to try and help other people, replicate certain things. And we hope that someone eventually will do this better than what we have.
That's exciting. Okay, next question from Katarina Alliance is, and Jamie, we'll start with you and then I could go to Joe. It's about restaurants. What would restaurants how would they make change faster, I guess, in terms of sustainability? Through public pressure or legislative power?
Well, I have seen I do deal with a lot of foreign markets, and I have to say when legislation comes in, it is a real mover and shake-up because as an example, in Germany right now, if you sell takeaway food, you must have a reusable option by law now.
Okay.
And so I think about smaller kind of restaurants, and they can move quickly, but what tends to happen is very large organisations like all the big supermarkets there do a lot of takeaway food. They've been left scrambling. They've been left to fund actually in a lot of products and try and get systems up very, very quickly. And they have the muscle to do it. So we've designed a sushi tray which will be available here, which is going to be available in the next few weeks. But the main customer was Germany for a big supermarket there. So I think legislation is critical. But, in the end, legislation doesn't come without grassroots people making the change and showing that it's possible. That's absolutely critical.
Yes.
I'm a bit disappointed with some of the governments in Australia because, Keep Cup has gone out to the world, right? And it's estimated that it displaces about 9 billion cups a year, Keep Cup alone, right?
Oh,
and yet here we are, and there's other Australian businesses that have done reusable cups that are also going well overseas. And here the Australian government's lagging.
Yep.
I'd love to see some action, some leadership.
That's another. We need to have this into a part series now, I think, because there's got a few things to talk about. Joe, would you like to add to that about legislative power?
I totally agree. I think it will start with I think you've got to prove that you can do it. And then when you prove that you can do it, then it will catch on and it'll have to be mandated, I guess. That's what we're just trying to show, that it's possible. And then once you show that it is and it's not a drastic change, that it will catch on. I think people will do it if they have to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, next question from Alejandro Archibald. Nice of you to be watching. Thank you. Hi, Joe. Sustainable zero waste philosophies is something I'm trying to implement more and more in the bar I work in and at home. And the drinks I make. So I was wondering if there's any focus on drinks at all with the food you serve.
Yes, we do. So we use a lot of grower producers who either grow grapes or apples and then have gone through a kind of biodynamic, I guess, process or minimal intervention. And then drinks, we've done a lot of fermenting. So we make lots of vinegars and shrubs and sodas, like that, some oils. And then, we just work with really good producers who are like-minded. We had a really interesting wine before we closed with the bottle had 40% less glass in it. So it was able to cut down on carbon emissions through being shipped. So through transport, the bottle was a lot smaller, still held the same volume of wine, but the carbon emission was reduced. And we just started making our own gin as well with Darling Distillery. So we captured our rainwater from the roof and picked produce from the garden, and we're making our own gin.
Oh,
I'm
that's
really excited. And I've tried to make beer. I'm just about to bottle my own beer. So, yeah, we have been doing beverages as well.
It sounds like all the more reason to go around to Future Foods now.
I know. You're not missing out on it. It's not like you're going to come here and eat.
You had me on the mushrooms, but now it's beer and gin.
Beer and gin, I'm there. And no, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, next question is from Rahel. Hello, Rahel. I'm thinking this is Rahel from Glue on Smith Street in Collingwood. Sustainable Wine Bar. Do you think us as an industry should or could get together and demand modernised food safety regulations as well as more sustainable regulations in waste management plans often dictated by council? So collective, should we all start getting together? What do you think, Jamie? I'm dropping.
I certainly think the legislation is they're miles behind where the whole market basically is, and they're effectively playing catch up when it comes to all the sort of things around food delivery and reusables and those sorts of things. There's never been any legislation to prevent it, but there have been noises from council at times that maybe they're not happy about having to refill people's own containers. So I certainly think they've got to get their act together. Generally speaking, though, councils have been very supportive of all the reusable things that I've come up with. Often they have implemented them in their own jurisdictions and their own shopping strips, etc., funded certain things. But I do tend to think there's a lot of work that has to be done there to sort of modernise all that sort of stuff.
And Joe, on that, do you think, as Rahel suggested, getting a bit of a collective going, a community going to create one strong voice?
Yeah, I always think community is better. I don't think one person knows all. I think as a group, especially Melbourne hospitality, we're so strong. We shape the city, and I think it was a great idea to work together, throw around ideas, and then together work through, I think, coming up with a solution. And then, if we're all on board, it's a lot easier for councils and, government bodies to get on board if you have the solution there. It's not like they have all the answers either. They're just kind of staying safe and covering their asses, really. So I think if we come up with a solution and present it, often it makes it a bit more convenient and easier to make change.
Doing house, Joe? Is this something you're going to get you leading?
Oh, I mean, I would love to do something like that. I don't know how. So I said to Danny, I'd love to. Before COVID, we wanted to have like a hospo hangout on a Monday night where we would talk about these subjects and these issues that we're all having as a hospitality industry as a whole.
Yes.
Because there's so many people who love dining out and there's so many restaurants. And I think the whole competitive element is completely in the past, like years and years ago. So now it's about...
You can't do it anymore, I don't think. I
don't think it's there. So now it's just about helping each other. Like, it's already hard running a hospitality business, with staff wages, just all the other pressures. And then to think about sustainability on top of that it's a lot for, hospitality people. So I think if we got together and helped each other, I think it's a great idea. And yeah, I'd love to be a part of that, or if I could help facilitate that, 100%. Hopefully when we do reopen, we can start doing hospo hangouts again, or, I think this is what we're doing now is really helpful.
I think communication and conversation is always, connection is everything, really, and community. We have 3 more questions, so we've got about 5 minutes left, guys. Thank you so much again. This is Larissa Lewis for Jamie. We're so conscious of our role in creating waste through the cooks and chefs using our platform there on Kookaburra. While we encourage and are starting to incentivise them to use sustainable choices, the returnables and reusables are the North Star. Ideally, every cook using our platform, who mostly cater for return customers in their local neighbourhoods, use returnables. Are we dreaming?
Definitely, she's not dreaming. It's going to happen.
Okay, Larissa, it's got to be okay. I love it. Go. She's not dreaming. I hope I read that.
She's definitely not dreaming, and it's like my team and I know lots of other businesses basically are working hard on this every day to try and create solutions that people can engage in. And Returner is effectively platform agnostic. We will bolt our product, our know-how, we share everything, because what we know is that helping people build the habit and growing the category is ultimately going to be good for everyone. So, yes, the answer is a resounding yes. Call me tomorrow.
That's wonderful. Okay, there's a question for both of you, Joe. I'll start with you from Emily. What's your key I'm so sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied with these. Learning to implement at a personal level that you have implemented for yourself. So what have you learned maybe in this broad spectrum of the work you're doing that you've learned to implement yourself? And likewise, how to encourage others to implement these without seeming pushy?
I think I had to overcome the whole mentality that it is possible. That was a really big one. And when we started cooking here, that was a big hurdle to get over. Just convincing yourself that, yeah, I can actually do this, and then just stick to it. So, the coffee cup, for an example, is a really easy way to start. Just take your own cup, and then no cup, no coffee kind of rule. Just little rules for yourselves, I guess. And then I think the biggest one for people, which surprises me, is the whole cling wrap. I guess it's always the same thing. Just take the thing that's bothering you or that kind of weighs down on you out of your life, and then come up with the solution. So I don't think being pushy is ever good, because people will accept it in their own time. I think introducing people to different ideas and then showing how you've done it is a good way to share information. But I think as soon as you start pushing things on people, there's a bit of resistance maybe, and they're not willing to. I know, with my family, my dad, he loves growing food, really into it, but sometimes he's just stuck in tradition and old way, and you try so hard to, hey, use this or don't do that, and just doesn't work until you show and just do it gently. So I think a gentle approach is always really nice, and just showing that it works.
That's wonderful. And Jamie?
Yeah, I suppose I totally agree with what Joe's saying, that you don't, you want to take people on a journey, and the journey starts small with little things that you can implement. I do think creating little rules for yourself that are private, that you just hold in your own head, that you're going to do something a certain way. And it's always surprising how, how you can often stick to it. Over the last, 10 years, it's not like I've never used a disposable coffee cup. Yeah. People would often, might buy me a coffee. I don't open the top of their pants and pour it in. I accept it graciously. Okay. You don't have to be militant about these sorts of things. The one thing that I haven't been my bonnet about is I don't think I've bought a bottled water in at least a decade, more so than let's say coffee cups or those sorts of things. But yeah, just start on the journey and explore different things and see what you can get to work for you. And as things start to change, support those changes. Sometimes they are a bit lumpy, maybe embarrassing, maybe not quite doesn't quite fit in, but give them a go and see if you can get it to work, because everyone behind these systems is squirreling away daily trying to make them better and easier, and a whole lot of things that would be great.
I know we're running out of time, but one thing that I found really helped me was when we started growing food, and then you see the effort that goes into growing food. This is even at Oak Ridge, just raising seedlings, planting, watering, harvesting. It made me not want to waste anything because of the amount of effort. And then there's transport and added things, so you feel a bit more responsible. And then just getting out into nature as well really helps, because you see plants growing or plants suffering or, waste in the most random, beautiful places. And you're like, oh, I just don't want to be a contributor to that. And then every time I go to use something, you think back of that beautiful river with some plastic in it and you're like, oh, no.
Yep. 350 and all that kind of thing. Yes. Take your litter home. Basic things. And sort it out, or don't have litter. But it's such a pleasure to have spoken with you both today. Jo, where can we find you and Matt and Yost on Instagram? And just a quick plug for both your websites and things.
So we post all our food on Future Food System at Future Food System on Instagram, and then I have an Instagram. Matt and Yost, we all have separate ones, and we all post different aspects of the house, things that are failing or going right. And then we have a website, futurefoodsystem.com, which will link you to our live streams and information from YouTube and the virtual tour if you want to have a look through the house.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And Jamie Forsyth from Returner Marketplace. Returner's new, like really the marketplace. I should say.
The marketplace is literally brand new. The first deliveries went out yesterday, so and the response has been really, really great for that. Lots of new, exciting, not only assets, so like the things that you reuse coming onto the platform over the next 8 weeks, but lots of exciting local brands. So you can find that at returnermarketplace.com. And then if you're a restaurant and maybe you want to either maybe be supply or have returner in your environment, we've got lots of products and you can find some information on those at returner.org. And then I also just encourage people just connect with me on LinkedIn. Talk to me directly. I answer everyone's questions or whatever.
And can we have a scoop? I didn't confirm this with you, but Jo, can we share the scoop?
Yeah, so coming up, I think it's on the
scoop. I just want to share that.
So if you stay tuned to our Instagram on the 15th of October, Jamie, myself, Yost and Matt, we're bringing back brothel at Fed Square. So we're going to be serving bone broth as a bit of a hurrah of kind of coming out of COVID, and we're bringing back bone broth. So we're really excited to be in Returner, and you can come down, try our new gin and grab some broth. We'll have a vegan option as well.
And we'll find out about that on Instagram.
We'll pop it up on our Instagram. So, yeah,
thank you.
All are welcome.
We love that. That's the best. Jo Barrett and Jamie Forsyth, honestly, thank you both so much for your commitment and your leadership. You're both doing it.
Thank you.
And guiding us. Thank you so very much. It's been a real, real pleasure and honour to talk to you both. And I can't wait to see you both soon. Somewhere, somehow, when the world is open again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the chat tonight. I'm Hilary McNevin from Turnip, and on behalf of Worksmith, Xero, Square, Mercedes-Benz, Kookaburra, ALM, and from me, thank you so much for being with us. And we'll see you next time. And our next chat's going to be with Dave Verheul from Embla and Michael Ryan from Providence. And they're talking about their work and the booze they make on the side. They're doing some really interesting things. So that's going to be a really fun chat next month. But until then, everyone stay well and stay safe. And Jo and Jamie, thank you again.